welcome to Frontline. I am Obiora Ilo. This week on our program, we will join the conversation on Constitution Review, which is the big issue, if not the biggest issue, this passing week. Unfortunately, there are a million discordant voices on what should be reviewed in the Constitution, whether it should be reviewed by the National Assembly or by a sovereign national conference, or whether the Constitution should be reviewed at all. Some experts shared their insight with Frontline. As this Constitution review progresses, many have continued to ask, what went wrong with the attempt to amend the Constitution during the Obasanjo presidency? What was the role of Obasanjo's third term in scuttling that attempt to amend the Constitution? We took time out to speak with distinguished Senator Ken Nnamani, who was the president of the Senate during that controversial period. What are the governors of some states complaining about in the just concluded financial bid opening for PHCN successor companies? We sat down with the Chairman, Technical Committee of the National Council on Privatization, Atedo Peterside. This past week, Nigerians have been talking Constitution review, and the legislators are in every constituency collating the input of Nigerians.
You see, let us not be afraid of change, because change is inevitable. We are moving forward as a country, and our wish, what is our wish? That we become one integrated Nigerian people. I've given you an example here. America didn't do it overnight. There was a time somebody who is from the southern part of America can never become a president. Never.
Or a Catholic.
Or a Catholic become a president in the US.
Or a black man.
Or a black man. But today, a black man has won 2 terms. So there's change. There was Rosa Parks. There was Martin Luther King Jr. Those were the people who moved up and changed the course of history. What we're doing today is to change the course of history. We cannot continue to move back and be afraid of moving. Yes, we sympathize with our people who are in the north for the oppression they're suffering now. But let them know that those sufferings are not in vain. We are making incremental progress. And as we condemn those barbaric behaviors, the behaviors are being driven away from our land. And I tell you, after what is happening in the north now, the north will not be the same again. It will not be the same. So let us not be afraid of change.
Therefore, I am asking that we make a recommendation that our senator pursues an amendment which incorporates both state and federal police, with a view to ensuring that once a matter involves the investigation from the federal police, the state police must yield to the federal police, so that objectivity is maintained on a matter of such local issues, just like in courts. When a court is sized to have bias in an issue, sometimes the jurisdiction is taken away from it. But we cannot kill a good idea by the fears that we have.
I'm supporting the first motion that we have one tenure of 6 years for elective office.
I'm here on behalf of traditional rulers in this zone to support the motion that there should be a role enshrined in the ongoing constitutional amendments. As stated by the first mover of the motion, and having said that, I say contra factum, no argumentum. Thank you.
Support of having a place for our river traditional rulers, say aye. No, against say no. No, the ayes have it. So anyway, you can move on.
The state held the People's Public Session jointly in the state capital, and representatives of various interest groups from the 6 federal constituencies in the state participated actively at the session. Overall, the people voted in favor of 24 and against 19 of the key issues slated for amendment.
We are also asking that our honorables in the process of amending this constitution should include in this compulsion. Nigerians are taking action, and I think we should take it once and for all and get it right.
Traditional rulers in Ekiti State were disappointed when the people in a loud voice rejected the offer that they should have representation in the National Council of States as well as constitutional roles in the state.
The scene is a public hearing on the amendment of the Constitution organized across the country by the House of Representatives in Adamawa State. The public section recorded success as the exercise was conducted without inches. Participants included politicians, women, youths, traditional and religious leaders, university lecturers, teachers and workers. It became clear in one of the public sessions in Yola North and South Federal Constituency that agitators for more states will have to do more to secure popular support for their demands. Although there are 56 requests for state creation from various parts of the country before the National Assembly, majority of the participants rejected the clamor for more states. There was support for the proposal for local government autonomy and tenure of council chairmen and councillors. Wife of Adamawa State Governor Binta Yaku holds the view that the agitations for gender equality will be laid to rest if the clamor for the affirmative action gets constitutional backing.
But for me personally, my main area of interest will be on gender issues. You know, as it affects gender, the Constitution has not adequately addressed gender issues.
At the beginning of the week, Obiora Ilo, a lawyer and expert on federalism, and Jide Ojo, a development expert, were in our studio where they talked with us about the issues in this Constitution review. Is there a need for us to review our Constitution? Let me start with you, though.
Well, the popular saying is that the Constitution is a living document. So as development in the society occur, as changes occur in everyday life of a nation, there's always a constant need to go back to the constitutive document that defines the terms and conditions of that relationship in the country and see what needs to be tweaked, what needs to be changed, you know, to bring it in tune with the current realities. So to that extent, yes, there's a need to, you know, look at the Constitution again. However, the Nigeria context is a little bit more complex, given the fact that in 1999, when the Constitution was adopted, Rotimi Williams of the blessed memory said that it was a document that lies about itself when it introduces the Constitution as we the people, you know, Nigerians coming together to accept the Constitution. The process of having the public buy-in wasn't there. The Constitution actually was an act of the military. If you look at how the Constitution was promulgated, there was a decree to the effect that says that the Constitution comes into force. So saying that it is a document of Nigerians is actually a lie in itself. So when you look at that historical context of the Constitution, of course there's a need to look at it again to make it a true document of the people.
Okay, Jide, you think there should be a review?
No. I differ a little. I have taken a very reflective look at Nigerian Constitution and the agitations for review. And I think we are just wasting our time. If you know, I mean, taking it from the premise that Udo just left, that the Constitution lied against itself. It was not inclusive, it was not public-driven. Why are we shying away from rewriting the entire Constitution and following due process of doing that? We are postponing the last exercise in 2010 got over 2 billion, if I'm not mistaken, because the two separate chambers have to go their separate way. And I think they voted 1 billion naira each for the amendment of that Constitution. Now, over 30 items were reviewed in 2010. In 2012 now, we have embarked on another effort. When you look at Kenya, What they did simply was to rewrite the Constitution in 2010.
Okay, Jide, is that why you wrote on October 17 in the Punch?
Yeah.
You said we should stop wasting time and resources tinkering with the current Constitution. We should rather use the 1999 Constitution as a working document and rewrite completely a new Constitution using a new using a process-led, inclusive, and participatory approach. Let me ask you what you mean by process-led, inclusive, participatory approach.
I mean, it's very self-explanatory. The last exercise, the one that was given to us by Decree 34 of 1999, which my friend Jude was citing, was not process-led. 50 people sat in a very cozy conference room for some time, wrote these things, and said in the opening paragraph that we, the people, have given this to ourselves. Yes, the process of constitutional amendment will be elite-driven, but it must capture the nuances, must capture the views of majority of Nigerians. And in doing that, we need to set up a constituent assembly of major, I'm not talking necessarily, in that article you cited, my take is that, okay, the argument by the National Assembly is that they are constitutive electoral body and there cannot be true sovereignty, so they cannot accept a sovereign national conference. Okay, don't dissolve. Just add, look at the other excluded groups that are not in those 469, add it, even if we have 500, 600 people, but make it in such a way that, one, the views of majority of Nigerians find expression in what eventually comes.
Jide,
and that the final output is subject to referendum.
Okay, Jide, before we go more on the processes of amending the Constitution, let me go to Udo, because in May 26, 2012, you addressed a retreat of the House of Representatives, where you suggested that the 1999 Constitution, with respect to its provisions on the federal structure of Nigeria, is perceived to suffer from two main problems, which you said, inadequacies, provisions on federalism that undermines effectiveness, and incoherence in some of its provisions that breeds confusion. I guess these are the reasons why you're saying that we should review.
Exactly. The point, I'll just give you two practical examples. The Constitution talks about citizenship. The same Constitution talks about indigenship. It doesn't define the relationship between citizenship and indigenship. And what we see in the country right now is that somehow the rights attributable to indigenship undermines the citizenship right of Nigerians, meaning that if you live in various parts of the country, you're treated as a settler and you don't have access to state resources. That is just one example. So these are some of the things I feel will need to be clarified, need to be redefined. Now, the local government has a status that nobody can define. Is it a separate tier of government? We don't know. Does it fall under the control of the state? We don't know. Does it fall under the control of the National Assembly? We don't know. So these are some of the examples of issues that need to be clarified, the ambiguities in the Constitution that need to be addressed. But going back to what Jide is saying, of having an enlarged Constituent Assembly to discuss the Constitution, one of the reasons why Nigerians are uncomfortable with the National Assembly going forward with this amendment is that they don't have credibility. Unfortunately, Nigerians don't trust them. And the question that I keep asking when we have this conversation about an enlarged Constituent Assembly or a sovereign National Assembly is, within which platform are we going to select people? That's what the National Assembly is suffering, is from an electoral process that people find questionable. And that same process is going to throw up some of these individuals again. So an enlarged Constituent Assembly might not solve the issue of credibility.
What will solve the problem?
What I'm saying is that a piecemeal approach to constitutional reform is what has survived in various countries. In Nigeria, we tried a wholesale approach in 2005. It failed completely. So if we go back to that wholesale approach of constitutional review, there's a likelihood that it's going to fail.
When you say piecemeal, what do you mean?
taking out various sections of the Constitution and reviewing them. A gradual process of review, instead of calling people together and taking a holistic approach of reviewing the whole document or writing a new Constitution. I do not agree with it, but what I'm saying is that we are saddled with a situation that is problematic, and we need to make the best out of it.
In that same document I talked about with those presentation, in his last words, he begged the representatives to ensure they don't create states. And for a lot of Nigerians, constitutional review is state creation. Jide, how do we get the issues that we need to review?
My position is very clear. I mean, from time, my commentary on the issue of state creation has been that it's needless. It's needless not necessarily because there are no genuine arguments in support, particularly the Southeast that felt cheated that out of the entire 6 zones, it's the only one that has 5 states. But the issue is about viability. It's about economic sustenance. We have 36 state structure, 774 local government structure, and 1 federal government. Now, when you look at the revenue sharing formula, many of the states, only very few, 5, 6 or thereabout, can survive without federal subvention. So when you now go balkanizing, what is the whole essence of local governance? When you have 774, each of the states have, the list maybe is Bayelsa that has about 8 local government. But also you need to contextualize that in terms of the size of the state. I don't see any merit because the issue of marginalization that you want to solve will never end. It will be marginalization in perpetuity. The moment you create upper state from Benue, for instance, the other subethnic group outside of Idoma will come up and say that, look, Idoma people are also frustrating us. We need to have our own state.
How should we go? What should we do? A couple of committees have been set up by the president. They are doing this and doing that, National Assembly. How do we go so that we can get this new constitution that will be acceptable to all of us?
3 things that I put on the table. One is, and the 3 are premised on the theory of effectiveness. Which tier of government is better placed to perform certain duties? And if that analogy is placed on the Constitution, then there's need to devolve the powers of the federal government and assign more duties to the state governments. That's a caveat. The more powers you assign to state governments, the greater the oversight mechanism you have to put in place so they don't keep squandering our money. The states, some of the states, or most of the states are more of a fiefdom, where people do whatever they like and they're accountable to nobody. So if you're giving states more powers, please go back and remove the immunity powers that the governors have. I don't see why in a democracy governors should have an unlimited immunity. There should be a qualified immunity. And then the third point is that fiscal responsibility should be an overarching trend in our Constitution. In whatever we do in devolution of powers and whatever we do in redistribution of resources to states, management of resources, the issue of fiscal responsibility should be the watchword so that people can, all this talk about tinker with the Constitution, give us new state, is about poverty and underdevelopment. If you take away corruption and put in effective leadership at the center and at the state level, we shouldn't be having this conversation we're having right now.
Jide, how do we move forward?
Issue of local governance, we must really come to terms with it. I feel that local government should be the responsibility of the state. Whichever state wants to create 200 local government, let it create it. But even by definition of KC of federalism, is usually between the federal and the state structure and the constituent states. If you restructure the fiscal, if there is adequate fiscal federalism in which you devolve more power and more resources to the state, but with effective watchdog or effective checks and balances in place to make sure that they don't misuse the power, because that's where the issue of fear about even police and state police comes from. That is likely to be subjected to abuse. Look at what happened in Sokoto State just 3 days ago, where it was alleged that the governor beat up a PACN staff, flogged him because of an issue of lack of electricity in his village. You know, it's condemnable.
The discussion on constitutional review is open-ended.
Yeah, sure.
It's something that we'll continue to talk and talk and talk about. Gentlemen, I must thank you for coming on our show. Udo, thanks. And Jide, thank you.
Creation of states is one area that we need to amend the Constitution so that it will be a lot more proactive and easy to look at the regions that will balance the present imbalance on our states, you know. And then the regions too has also been agitating the way the national cake or the revenue is being shared. The Constitution has to reflect on that so that at least those people to have a voice that will be more permanent.
I want to think that the whole Constitution from pages 1 to the last page should be amended. But being a lawyer, let me restrict myself to the judiciary. The powers of the Attorney General of the Federation should be pruned down in our constitutional amendment.
The tenure of the presidency, tenure of governors, and of course, Section 7 of the Constitution, which has to do with local government administration, requires a look. And of course, the role of traditional rulers in our communities is not specifically pronounced in the Constitution. So I think there are agitations in that area which requires the review of the Constitution to reflect the yearnings and aspirations of the people.
Too much power is concentrated in the center. The federalism presupposes a separation, a division of powers with different levels of government or different types of government, state, local government, and federal government. I think more powers should be given to the states, and then local governments should be released from the prone strengths of a state government. There ought to be a lot more independence and more separation of powers.
I think the local government administration should be #1, because that is where the government is closer to the common man. And presently in this country, the local government administration is at the beck and call of the state governors, and that is not good for our development. If they are given a little freedom, free up the revenue allocation given to them, I believe they will make more impact at the local government level, and Nigerians will feel more of the impact of government.
I look at one critical area that we need to review. It's in the issue of true federalism. There is need for Nigeria to practice true federalism. That will aid the development, or rather fast track the development of Nigeria, because governance will be closer to people. People can be able to hold their leaders at the state level and local government accountable. And the issue of devolution of power. There is so much concentration of power in the center.
There must be fiscal federalism, there must be power devolution. Understand me? Powers must be, devoluted from the up to down, so that even at the local government level, those at the helm of affairs there can be autonomous. Unlike what we have now, the state governors, with impunity, deep hand into the coffers of the local government fund. Understand me? Because there's no way the local government could say no, because it was a sort of joint venture or joint account between the state government and local government.
Senator Ken Nnamani was the president of the Senate during the last effort to amend the Constitution, and we spoke to him on what transpired and other issues of his presidency. a while as Senate President, you enjoyed a cozy relationship with President Olusegun Obasanjo. But at a point, it snapped, and I mean, everybody was like, what happened? And you're telling us the story. Where did the bridge break between you and President Olusegun Obasanjo?
I wouldn't say there was a time when I enjoyed a cozy relationship with him. It was not cozy. We were not the best of friends, but we were not enemies. That is the fact. He was not entirely hostile to me, and I was not hostile to him. But we were not the best of body. We were not all that too close. Yet we were not too far away because we belong to the same party. What looked like there was a distraction, or there was a severe relationship, if that's what you are referring to, had to do with the popular constitutional amendment. And I have heard from many quarters that the president then said that he didn't want the issue of tenure elongation, that if indeed he wanted, he would have gotten it. Some of his aides who have been talking lately in the press were making such comments. I don't know from where they got that impression, but the fact of the matter remains that we have at least 2-3 types of bill that come to National Assembly. Members could sponsor a bill. An outsider could sponsor a bill through a member, of course. And then, but the most important one is the executive bill. The bill we considered that had to do with which now people call tenure elongation, constitutional amendment, was an executive bill. It was not a private member's bill. Mm-hmm. So if a president did not know anything about it, but it was a bill that came out from his table to us, it wasn't my bill.
But let me ask you, I mean, at that level, yes, did the president at any time invite you to say, look, I want a third term? I mean, it's history now, so you can as well...
I will claim, and eminently so, that I know what transpired. The president did not at any time, he did not call me, say, Nnamani, please come, I want a term. It didn't flow that way. But I have made a statement here.
About the executive bill that came?
Yes. The bill that we considered for the amendment of our Constitution was an executive bill. And some of us, including my humble self, made a recommendation while that exercise was going on. We suggested that that bill should be split into 3 or 4 so that if there's any technical hitch, it will not affect the whole lot. I'll give you an example. So many things in that bill, so many clauses were quite genuine, and Nigerians needed it, particularly where I come from, Southeast. We feel that the creation of states, the Southeast requires additional 1 state at least, the minimum, 1 state, to bring it to par with other zones, if zones should become a constitutional issue. Southeast has only 5 states. Every other zone has 6, in fact, one has 7. So if zone becomes a constitutional matter, because the zoning issue we are talking is not in the Constitution, the Southeast zone it's not in the Nigerian Constitution so far. Now, creation of additional states in Southeast was there in that amendment. It was a genuine thing to do.
Yeah.
But because we had only 1 bill, when there was a technical hitch,
With one aspect.
With one aspect of tenure elongation. The whole bill had to go. It had not gotten to the level where we would have gone clause by clause to select, to pull out the wheat, or to pull out the real issues or the genuine issues. We hadn't reached to that point. We were at the point of general principles and merit of the bill when it collapsed. And why did it collapse? It collapsed because people thought it was obnoxious. At a point, my personal decision, I take responsibility for this. I suggested to senators we should take 3 or 4 days break. Please go and consult your constituencies. What do they think about this particular clause? So we stood down sitting for 2-3 days. When we resumed the debate, it was obvious that people didn't want it. All that was required on my part, because I wasn't going to vote as the presiding officer, was to show political courage, to get the aggregate opinion, and follow the rule judiciously without pleasing anybody. So anybody who claims that, oh, the president didn't know about it, but the bill came from where?
Supporters of Mr. President said because you didn't like the president,
yes.
Because, like you have said, you didn't have that kind of cozy relationship, that using your office, you killed that bill because you didn't like the president.
No, it had nothing to do with not liking. I didn't have to, I don't know what people mean by liking. I'm not gay. So, talking about liking Mr. President does not arise. I'm a regular individual. So, now, let's be serious about this. It has nothing to do with whether Nnamani liked the president or not. No, it's beyond that. Remember what I said. We had to follow the process. I believe, and I still do that in a democratic setting, the process is more critical than the outcome. How you arrive at an issue is even at times more important than that issue. We followed the procedure. Constitution itself, Nigerian Constitution, proscribes. That there's a clear delineation of how to amend the Constitution itself. It's spelled out, 8 and 9, chapters 8 and 9 is there. All that was required of us was to follow that thing. Because the people who expected me to clear the gallery and declare results, anybody who didn't like it should go to court. There were pressures to that extent. Anybody who didn't like the decision we are taking should go to court. I said, no, we're not going to clear the gallery. Remember, AIT paid a price for continuing to support that proceeding. Supporting in the sense that AIT covered it. Many other media houses disappeared. It was only the first few days that many other stations came and covered us. When it became hot, other stations ran away. And the AIT paid dearly in the end. Some of our buildings were knocked down and all kinds of things. But it was a sacrifice. Some of us were prepared for whatever sacrifice, but we were going to follow the rule to the end.
Why? Why, for instance? What gave you the idea? One, that you needed coverage by AIT. And two, you put your colleagues on the spot when you said that everyone had to stand up and answer his father's name.
Yes. I answered it.
Why? People thought you were mean.
No. Well, it could be an aspect of meanness, fine, but the end, as far as I'm concerned, in this particular case, was more important in this. Now, you see, it was not just AIT. We wrote letters to all media houses to please come and cover this thing. By the way, we did not pay 1 naira to AIT throughout that time. AIT did not charge Senate 1 naira for the coverage, for the duration of that epic debates. So it was thrown open. And the reason I thought, because being an Igbo man, the general impression is that if you give an Igbo person money, he will do anything you want him to do. And they have been my predecessors. Most of them left office because on account of money. Whether it was right or wrong, I don't know. Whether they did what they were accused for or not, I don't know. But I said, remember, I said, one, I will not be chairman of Tenders Board, even though I'm the chairman of the National Assembly. I wanted a bureaucrat, a civil servant, to be the chairman of Tenders Board so that there be no monetary involvement as such. Two, I figured that if people at home fail to see what transpired, any story told people outside, they will believe it. So I wanted coverage. I requested our media man, Senator Ndomeba, to write letters. I have copies. I still have copies to media houses. The only one that had the courage to stay on was AIT. It was to make sure that every person witnessed what happened. Transparency. I figured that publicity will add more impetus to people believing us.
But there was a lot of pressure on you and the Senate.
Of course there was.
To make sure AIT discontinued with the coverage.
And not just AIT, even ordinary cameras. I was being told there was a lot of pressure that I should clear the gallery. I said that before. I should clear the gallery, that because of the camera that is distracting the attention of senators. But I said, the reason for having gallery in all parliaments is because you are the delegates of the people. You are the trustees of the people at home. They need to know what you are doing. We're not amending our own internal rules. We're amending the constitution of the country. The people need to know what we are doing. So I wanted, if that banana peels was going to take anybody, it would take all of us, so that let people know what we are doing. It's not just saying transparency, transparency. People have to see it. They have to know, feel it.
There was allegation of monies being offered to senators.
Well, whether money was offered to senators or not, what I was more concerned with was to make sure that we follow the rules.
Was money offered to you as a person?
There will be no need of offering money.
Or other things, other incentives offered to you, just for you to get away from the set objective?
No. I wouldn't say that. I'll answer and say it didn't arise at all, because my role, I kept saying it. And it even appears to me that you don't believe it. I'm saying that I have no vote. The only time a presiding officer can vote is if there is a tie.
But you had a lot.
There was only one time, of course. The only time I voted in the Senate was the day my deputy was under pressure. There was 39 votes. People, they wanted him to step down. I had to cast my vote to say no. Let's give him a chance. That was the only voting I did until I left office. So in this particular case, for a clause to pass, you have to have at least 73 senators. And when you remove 73 from 109, there can be no tie. So there will be no time for me to vote. You have to go and convince the senators, give them whatever you want to give, or do whatever you want for them. If you convince them, fine. Mine was to make sure you follow the rules. So for those who get worried, I say, Nnamani threw away the baby with the water, because they didn't understand what transpired. The bill died at that second reading stage. We haven't reached the stage where we will go clause by clause, so that Southeast and some other people will have gotten the amendment. It was one bill, and if there was a fault in that one single bill,
it was like an omnibus.
That was why some of us thought that it may be necessary to split the bills so that some could pass, some could fail. I don't know. I didn't know any particular one would pass or fail. But in case, since it was one single bill, any fault, any technical hitch, the bill will go down. There were many good things in that bill. I've given an example.
You said so.
Yes.
So at that period, were you afraid of your life at any time?
I did mention that there was what you call political courage. Some of us tried to show political courage at personal consequences. We figured that for anything you do, you must be prepared for a sacrifice. It got to a point, and if you're a presiding officer and you're on that seat and the debate is hot, you're on your own, you have to make a decision and bear the consequence. So yes, of course, I was worried, but I had the support of my family that I must remain firm for history.
Forgive me, but I need to ask this. Is it true that members of the international community offered you some incentives?
To do what?
To make sure that that bill died?
Unfortunately, I have never had anything like that. Nobody offered any incentive to me to do any particular thing. The only incentive I had was from my colleagues, that they were in support of me. If you play the tape, what transpired in those areas, there was a time Senator Idris Kuta stood up and said, "Senate President, tell us, have we been given an oil block? Tell us, we will follow you. Whatever you want us, we brought you, we will follow you." And I made a short speech, told him that between me and my conscience and God, I've not been offered anything. I owe my being on this seat to you people and to God. No. And I will not betray it. So nobody at home and abroad or anybody offered any incentive.
I would like to ask, how would you describe President Olusegun Obasanjo? I mean, you've worked with him. You've had your differences.
Yes.
You've also partnered in moving the country forward.
Yes.
So how would you describe him?
Very energetic human being. I don't see anybody who has as much stamina, dedicated to work. You leave him around 1 or 2 in the morning, by 4 or 5 he will call you on the phone. I've never seen such a human being. He's never tired. He's older than me, but I think he has more stamina. Whether he's doing the right thing or not, I don't know.
He's passionate about it.
Yes. He's very dedicated, you know, but that much I can say about him.
What can you say about Chimaroke Nnamani? Your brother,
your
friend?
Chimaroke, you know, Chimaroke was another bubbling young man, my junior. He tried, but I'm sure he knows that he derailed. You know, but I hope history will be very kind to him.
Are you friends?
We're not enemies now.
But you're not friends, definitely.
We are. He's my brother. I have. We are. I visited. He visited me last time. I visited him also. We can't quarrel forever. I'm sure he has seen where he made some mistakes. And maybe I saw where I made mistakes, but I tried to. I controlled myself more than he controlled himself, and he agrees with me.
Do you regret any of your actions at the Senate?
If I'm to go back, I'll do the same thing over and over again. If the same opportunity came, no regrets.
Resist another term?
Of course. I will follow the rule. It wasn't. I must give credit to my colleagues because I had wonderful senators at my time. Very matured guys. We had over 50, I don't know how many PhDs. There were wonderful senators, honestly. And I'm happy with the present senator. You know why? Most of the things we started, they are maintaining the same tempo. I'm very happy about that.
You're watching Frontline. Remember, you can also watch this program or any of our old episodes on www.frontlineng.com. You can also follow me on Twitter or visit my Facebook page or send your opinions by text. Minutes after the financial bids opening for PHCN successor distribution companies on 16th October 2012, there were complaints from some governors who felt that they have been shortchanged, and they cried foul, questioning the credibility of the process. Though some of the noise is surprisingly going down, we sat down with Atedo Peterside, chairman of the Technical Committee of National Council on Privatization.
I'm curious, and let me just ask you the questions. First of all, we were privatizing. We were selling something to private sector companies. So which means that even if any government of any state or anything is involved in any bidder, they can at best be marginal players, probably even only less than 10%. Because if any consortium was government owned, they would have been disqualified outright. Because we were selling to the private sector, not to government sector. So that if my LGA chairman had said he wants to come and buy a disco, we would have been disqualified. So therefore, these were private sector companies. But the one I found curious, which I still don't understand, is that in the political system, even talk about, even in the business system, in terms of fair play, if a governor has a grievance with a process that is headed by the Vice President of the Federation, the National Council on Privatization is chaired by the Vice President. The one I found curious is that why would the governor not pick up the phone? Say, Mr. Vice President, can I come and see you? There's some things I don't understand. You follow me? Why would it be via the media? Is it fair that a Vice President will hear about somebody's so-called discomfort via the media? How can we run a political system if people in positions of authority don't even talk to each other? So I would have thought that going to the media would be a last resort. It cannot be a first resort. Second thing I would say is that, and I don't know, but sometimes leaders are giving wrong information. It's possible that a private company that's bidding for something runs into a problem. They rush to the governor and tell some stories. Now the onus is on the governor to verify the stories, do some investigation, do some homework. I don't know. I don't even know whether the private company told them the truth. So it could be that they were misinformed. There's so many ifs and buts and maybes. But
don't have notwithstanding. What is your position?
The position
in the voice they are raising?
Look, the rules, the request for proposals for these transactions were published or were produced and given out to all participants even before I joined the process. It's almost like saying somebody asked you to come and help to run the Olympic Games. And they've already told you that 100 meters, everybody will come, they'll say on your marks, get steady, go, and you will run. The fastest people will, and everything was laid down in advance. You only came to implement and make it happen. Of course, what one did first was to look at the rules. It was about 74 pages. We read them just in case there was something that was totally untoward or you thought was unworkable. No, honestly, I read everything. And I thought the request for proposal, the 74 pages, fairly reasonable, well thought through, standard, can work anywhere else in the world. So I didn't think it was a problem. There was nothing that I saw as a major problem. So one simply endorsed that and said, yes, let's run with this. And if you notice, many people who have been commenting never even knew what the rules were. Because for some of the comments they're making, let me just use layman's parlance. It's like somebody saying that in the Olympic Games, he took part in the heats. I think there was a Nigerian lady in the finals, 100 meters women, not so. Imagine that in the heats, she ran and she had the fastest time. The rules say what? Probably the 8 people with the fastest time go to the finals. Can you go and run in the finals? The Jamaican lady beats you. The American comes second. And they start shouting that don't give them the medals, because in the heat I had the fastest time. This is the kind of nonsense that we're hearing in Nigeria, when people are arguing that instead of giving the medal to the person that in the rules for the final crossed the tape first, we should go back and award a company to the person who, or the medal to the person that had the best time in the heats. So that shows you that they never even read the rules or understood them. You know, I'm not trying to simplify it, but I'm just saying that I think it's better to believe also that in everything dialogue helps. There are governors that have engaged me. Some meet me and say, this thing people are doing, why are you doing this? You give them the answer. They say, oh, that's so. I say, okay, I didn't know that. And they move on. If you engage people, it's easier. I'm not saying, therefore, that please, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that what I'm saying is good for all time, sorry. But if you engage people, you get a chance to hear both sides. I would love to engage anybody. I have no problem engaging anybody because I have nothing to hide. Whatever I've been involved in the effort to privatize, I know I can hold up my hand and say my only interest was the national interest.
What is your biggest challenge doing this job of privatization?
You know, people ask me things like, isn't there any pressure and so on, you know? And I tell people that, you know, you put yourself under pressure if you are not guided by the national interest. If you're looking for how to favor this friend or the other friend, or to bend this rule and so on, then you're going to have nightmares. But if all you're doing is every morning you wake up, committed, sincere, trying to do the best thing in accordance with the rules, there's no pressure.
Atedo Peterside, Chairman, Technical Committee of NCP. Finally, our party notes. The National Assembly this past week started the process of constitutional review as members went back to their constituents to get their input. One thing I noticed was the selfishness in the majority of the demands by the people. It was, we want this, or we want that. All parochial demands that will only benefit a section or a group or an interest in the country. Very few people talked about things that would benefit Nigeria. All that reminded me of that controversial book by Chinua Achebe, There Was a Country. And my question is, when are we going to have a country again? When are we going to start thinking about Nigerians and not as Hausa, Igbo, Yoruba, Idoma, or Ijo? It is time we have a country and leverage on those things that unite us and de-emphasize those things that divide us. That's our program for today. I am Obiora Ilo from Abuja, Nigeria.